kidding me? You're not leaving today until you explain what happened back at Siraj's secret base!
See ya.
This is for you Alhaitham fans. With him finally getting more screen time again in the Sumeru finale, I thought this would be the perfect time to go back and take a look at our feeble scholar. The hype for him when he was first revealed was crazy, you just had to be there. And of course he couldn't escape from the Dendro Kuching allegations. There will be very small spoilers, but if you absolutely want to avoid them to be safe, please click off the video. Let's jump right into it. The main colors for Alhaitham look to be primarily black with some green and gold woven throughout the design. We even see some light teals that are borderline blue near his hip as well. Typically, we see the detached sleeves with the female cast of Genshin Impact, but if we take a closer look, he's got them too. Even the sleeve underneath the fabric over his one shoulder is there. What I find interesting about Alhaitham is that both his shirt and his pants are skin tight. The shirt being that tight and showing the abs is definitely a nod to fan service, and it makes the feeble scholar comment all the more comical. Dude would not be built like this if he was just a wimpy little scholar. Having the back of his cape be a dark yellow is an interesting choice. You could say this complements the golden accents of his design, and we know that by putting a brighter color on the inner parts of a fabric, it helps prevent the design from blending together. I'm not sure if this dusty yellow was the best pick, but if the designers chose a blue or a teal, it could have blended in with the sash across his hip, so I get why they went with this color choice. When we turn Alhaitham around, we get to see the rest of his cape with intricate detail. With it hanging off one shoulder, I have no idea how he's keeping that on, especially with all those gems hanging. That has to add some weight to it. He must have super glued it to the one part of his shoulder. I do like that while we have the main color of black part on his cape, there's a beautiful and ornate teal piece of fabric as well. Having the collar match that color is nice, and it makes the collar pop even more. For the more subtle details of his design, I like that his boots have small green gems towards the top and that the toes are pointed upward. It takes something we see a lot and makes it a bit more unique. I also like that the skin tight shirt has a golden pattern towards the upper part of his chest. It gives us a bit more to look at, and of course the sash is a nice touch as well to help break up the shapes between his upper and lower body. I also cannot ignore the headphones that were arguably the first detail of his design that caught my attention. I remember a lot of players thought that he wore them to help with focus, or maybe he had sensitive hearing or hearing issues, but it turns out it is indeed to block out excess noise, which makes it a great device to ignore Kaveh with. I like that his vision is on his shoulder instead of his back, since we get a lot of visions on the back of characters. It's just different. Moving on to the splash art, we actually have a pretty simple splash art for a 5-star. We have the 3 main glowing gems in the forefront, which are an active part of his kit, and the smaller diamond gems in the back to resemble his burst. There is a lot of negative space in the splash art, and I could tell instantly that I got him when I was pulling way back then. I remember exploring the desert before the map update that showed the different levels. Farming primogems to pull for him was a pain back then. I do want to point you guys to a really neat detail on his burst art, and that's the lettering on the sides. What a perfect yet subtle way to nod towards his position as a scribe. Of course, the colors the designers used for this burst are so gorgeous. The subtle lighting on the ground underneath him and the gems set the scene well. I remember liking his design when it first came out, but now that a few years have passed, it's not a bad design at all, but it's not necessarily the most memorable one. The big elements to his design that remained in my brain were the headphones, the skin-tight shirt, and the cape hanging over his one shoulder. I like the main color combo of black and green, and in fact, I think more characters should take advantage of this color combination. A little side note here, but I think Seraph at the end really stuck out to me because their uniforms and weapons were utilizing this color combo. It was just different, and I also can't believe it's getting rebooted all these years later. You can do a lot of really cool things with it. For me, I think Alhaitham's personality stood out far more than his design did. It was refreshing to get a blunt character that, even though he is wickedly smart, he wouldn't go to extra lengths if that meant more work. Hell, the man didn't want to assume the biggest position at the academia because of the workload. He's fine just living his life as a scribe and reading books to gain more knowledge. He feels like the embodiment of work smarter, not harder, so that he has time in his life to do the things that he enjoys. Once Kaveh finally came out, we got to see them banter, and their dynamic made both of their respective characters even more interesting. I mean, come on, the two of them have matching idols over their house keys. One of the friendships, if you could call it that, with Alhaitham that gets overlooked is actually his bond with Paimon. I'm glad that they addressed it somewhat in the Sumeru finale, because he encouraged Paimon to enroll, and we get to see her smarts grow over time. From the initial Sumeru quests of him teasing Paimon and her inability to read difficult texts, to him now encouraging her education is a really nice development for both of their characters. All in all, I personally think Alhaitham has a nice design, but I wouldn't write it off as anything groundbreaking. At the time, Dendro was brand new and many players were trying to obtain as many of the new Dendro units as they could, myself included. Electro and Dendro teams were the star of the show, even giving older units like Keqing time to shine in the spotlight again. And as mentioned earlier in the video, he was compared to Keqing a lot due to the similarities that they shared in their kits. In all fairness, they were pretty similar. He could jump forward by holding the skill just like Keqing. He gained Dendro infusion while she gained Electro infusion, and their bursts were a radius around them with a bunch of slashes. Like, yeah, there was a reason for the comparisons. A year later, Chiori would come out and be referred to as the Geo Keqing. I might have to make a video on the repetitive nature of these character kits someday. We're starting to see a lot of ideas being recycled. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed, please leave a like and consider subscribing. If there is a character you want me to dedicate a video like this towards, please leave a comment telling me who it is. This Alhaitham one was requested by some of you, and I hope it was worth the wait. If you like this style of content, I have more Let's Discuss videos in a series you can watch next, alongside a bunch of other gacha game related videos in general. I hope to see you in the next one.